after a century of striving, after a year of debate, after a historic vote, health care reform is no longer an unmet promise. It is the law of the land. It is the law of the land. Now let me tell you what change looks like, because those fighting change are still out there, still making a lot of noise about what this reform means. So I want the American people to understand it and look it up for yourself. Go on our website, whitehouse.gov, or go to any credible news outlet's website and look in terms of what reform will mean for you. I said this once or twice, but it bears repeating. If you like your current insurance, you will keep your current insurance. No government takeover. Nobody's changing what you've got if you're happy with it. If you like your doctor, you will be able to keep your doctor. In fact, more people will keep their doctors because your coverage will be more secure and more stable than it was before I signed this legislation. And now that this legislation has passed, you don't have to take my word for it. You'll be able to see it in your own lives. I heard one of the Republican leaders say this was going to be Armageddon. Well, 2 months from now, 6 months from now, you can check it out. We'll look around. And we'll see. You don't have to take my word for it. So what works in our system won't change. And a lot of people are happy with the health care they've got, and that won't change because of this legislation. Here's what will change, and here's what will change right away. This year, we'll start offering tax credits to about 4 million small businesses to help them cover the costs of coverage. And that means that folks like Ryan will immediately get a tax break so that he can better afford the coverage he's already providing for his employees. And who knows, because of that tax break, he may decide to hire a couple more folks in his small business because of this legislation. This year, tens of thousands of uninsured Americans with a pre-existing condition and parents whose children have a pre-existing condition will finally be able to purchase the coverage they need. And that means folks like Natoma Canfield will have access to affordable insurance. That happens this year. This year, insurance companies will no longer be able to drop people's coverage when they get sick, or place lifetime limits or restrictive annual limits on the amount of care they can receive. This year, all new insurance plans will be required to offer free preventive care. And this year, young adults will be able to stay on their parents' policies until they're 26 years old. That all happens this year. This year, seniors who fall in the coverage gap known as the donut hole will get some help to help pay for prescription drugs. And I want seniors to know, despite what some have said, these reforms will not cut your guaranteed benefits. Let me repeat that. They will not cut your guaranteed benefits, period. I'd be wary of anybody who claimed otherwise. So these are the reforms that take effect right away. These reforms won't give the government more control over your health care. They certainly won't give the insurance companies more control over your health care. These reforms give you more control over your health care. And that's only the beginning. That's only the beginning. After more than a decade, we finally renewed the Indian Health Care Improvement Act. And the other changes I'm signing into law will take several years to implement fully. But that's because this is a difficult, complex issue, and we want to get it right. One of these reforms is the creation of a health insurance exchange. This is one of the most important reforms, and by the way, originally, I should point out, a Republican idea. Imagine that. The idea is that right now there are a lot of people out there buying health insurance on their own, or small businesses buying health insurance on their own. They don't work for a big company. They're not part of a big pool. So they have no leverage. They've got no bargaining power with insurance companies. But now what we're going to do is create exchanges all across the country where uninsured people, small businesses, they're going to be able to purchase affordable, quality insurance. They will be part of a big pool, just like federal employees are part of a big pool. They'll have the same choice of private health insurance that members of Congress get for themselves. That's going to happen as a consequence of this legislation. And when this exchange is up and running, not only because of better bargaining power will they see their premiums reduced, will people get a better deal, but millions of people who still can't afford it are going to get tax breaks so they can afford coverage. And this represents the largest middle-class tax cut for health care in our history. And it's going to mean that millions of people can get health care that don't have it currently. Now, for those of us who fought so hard for these reforms and believe in them so deeply, I have to remind you, our job is not finished. We're going to have to see to it that these reforms are administered fairly and responsibly. And this includes rooting out waste and fraud and abuse in the system. That's how we'll extend the life of Medicare and bring down health care costs for families and businesses and governments. And in fact, it is through these reforms that we achieved the biggest reduction in our long-term deficits since the Balanced Budget Act of the 1990s. So for all those folks out there who are talking about being fiscal hawks and didn't do much when they were in power, let's just remind them that according to the Congressional Budget Office, this represents over $1 trillion of deficit reduction, but it's being done in a smart way. And for those who've been suspicious of reform, and there are a lot of wonderful folks out there who, with all the noise, got concerned because of the misinformation that has marred this debate. I just repeat, don't take my word for it. Go to our website, whitehouse.gov. Go to the websites of major news outlets out there. Find out how reform will affect you. And I'm confident that you will like what you see. A common sense approach that maintains the private insurance system, but makes it work for everybody. Makes it work not just for the insurance companies, but makes it work for you. So that's what health reform is all about. Now, as long as the road as this has been, we all know our journey's far from over. There's still the work to do to rebuild this economy. There's still work to do to spur on hiring. There's work to do to improve our schools and make sure every child has a decent education. There's still work to do to reduce our dependence on foreign oil. There's more work to do to provide greater economic security to a middle class that has been struggling for a decade. So this victory does not erase the many serious challenges we face as a nation. Those challenges have been allowed to linger for years, even decades. And we're not going to solve them all overnight. But as we tackle all these other challenges that we face, as we continue on this journey, we can take our next steps with new confidence, with a new wind at our backs, because we know it's still possible to do big things in America. Because we know it's still possible to rise above the skepticism, to rise above the cynicism, to rise above the fear, because we know it's still possible to fulfill our duty to one another and to future generations. So yes, this has been a difficult 2 years. There will be difficult days ahead, but let us always remember the lesson of this day and the lesson of history, that we as a people do not shrink from a challenge, we overcome it. We don't shrink from our responsibilities. We embrace it. We don't fear the future. We shape the future. That's what we do. That's who we are. That makes us the United States of America. God bless you. And God bless the United States of America.